Welcome back. Our next two guests are two nice Jewish boys. One who moved to Israel and not only became part of the fabric of Israel's melting pot, but he and his Israeli partner are podcasting about the experience together. And really, people are tuning in. Joining us live is, I'm going to get it right, Naor Menninger and Eitan Weinstein. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Nice to meet you. I'm sorry that you have to live with this last name. I'm sure it's not easy, but better being in Israel than America. Excuse me. You're originally from Alabama. What made you
Birmingham, Alabama.
What made you make Aliyah to Israel?
I have no idea. That's
You're
a
still
good question.
wondering,
Yeah,
right?
I'm still trying to struggle with that question. But my parents are actually Israeli, and they raised us, kind of brainwashed us from age 0. You're going to move to Israel when you're 18. And
they're still there? They're still in the States?
No, they actually moved back. They moved back.
Moved back to Israel?
To Israel, to
okay,
here.
so at least you're all together.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so how did this whole idea come about? Did you each kind of have, like, did you start by, like, having a lot of comments about, you know, what it's like being Israeli and growing up here and all of the, interesting things that happen?
Basically, we met in film school. And after film school, I realized that making films is hard. So I figured maybe I could do a podcast. And I saw that we have, like, good chemistry. So I said to him, let's do a podcast together, and thus became Two Nice Jewish Boys. We started doing this podcast 1.5 years ago. It's a podcast about life in Israel in general. And recently we started a new podcast called The Melting Podcast.
So first of all, like, starting with the for Two Nice Jewish Boys, so this was interviewing Israelis, right? Not like Alim Hadashim, which for you Americans are crazy people like us who move here, which means new immigrants. So anyways.
Well, Two Nice Jewish Boys was actually, I mean, it's anybody either from Israel or passing through Israel. It wasn't necessarily Israelis. It could be Americans, Jewish, non-Jewish, but anybody that was here, because we do it in our home studio, and we have to do it face-to-face. We don't like doing it over the phone, and it's a 45-minute format where we sit with these people and we just talk to them about their life, their career. So it's not just
Israelis. But the Melting Podcast simply is like,
it's
Aliyah and Olim.
Yeah, so I mean, I imagine there's endless topics. I mean, is there ever? It's like, do you have a podcast just on one experience, like, you know, getting people to talk about driving on the roads with honking and not letting you parallel park kind of stuff?
Delicate issue.
Delicate.
We dealt with I mean, one of the things that just shocked me when I moved here and started driving in Israel is the fact that you actually have the yellow between red and green, which is just completely baffling, because why would you need that?
As baffling as Sunday being Monday, I still like get it all screwed up.
It doesn't make any sense. So, but we actually struggled to find one topic to talk about each episode, because it was just all over the place. There's just so many different things that Olim are trying to deal with, that, you know, it runs kind of the whole spectrum. Every episode we deal with the difficulties and the challenges and all the good stuff that you get when you move here. So
like, what are you liking in general, just about podcasting in general? I mean, it's like, you know, Apple has made it possible to, you know, like, everyone's got a podcast, which is great. So it's like everyone has their own radio show. I mean, was this an easy transition of getting followers and getting the word out there?
Well, it's a struggle. You know, it takes time to get to your audience and to build an audience. But for us, it was, because we came from filmmaking, it was actually a huge relief for us, because it's so much easier than
you don't have to get the camera and deal with editing and, like, how audio. Well, you have to deal with audio, but not video.
But actually, here in Israel, podcasting is not a big thing yet, so it wasn't obvious, and it took me forever to convince him to do it in the first place.
It wasn't easy to get.
Yeah, he played it hard to get.
So let's listen to we have a clip of one of your podcasts. Let's listen to it.
Sure.
So I came here to be with my people, and I'm raising my fingers in quote marks, but the listener can't hear that. And now I'm here, and I feel like I don't fit in 100%.
Why?
Because I feel like there are some things in this country and in our culture here in Israel that I can't accept.
Interesting. A lot of people share that opinion.
Yeah.
But I imagine
we heard Josh Bloomberg and Ole, who did an interview on the Melting Podcast.
So what, you know, so who have you found as far as your audience? Is it mainly like English speakers living in Israel, or has it like kind of crossed over to, you know, the States and other English speaking countries?
Our listenership right now, I mean, we're still trying to find out who it is. I mean, we produce this podcast for Kan, which is Israel's Public Broadcasting Corporation. So, you know, we created the podcast, we handed it over to them. It's kind of in their hands right now. Who we're targeting is mainly Olim in Israel. So we kind of try and deal with the problems that they're dealing with. Of course, you know,
which is also very therapeutic, you know, like to know, like, oh, I'm not the only one who gets upset when I get yelled at or honked at.
And that's revolutionary in a sense that because Kan, which is a new corporation here in Israel, they came and told us we want to do content in English for Olim, and this is basically the first time.
And listen, and it's a great market. I mean, it really is. Like,
and
we want to feel represented, and we, you know, like there's like ever since I started working here, there's such a comfort to being, you know, you realize that, you know, you have certain things in common that, you know,
and
it's hard to get homesick, you know.
And they have the mandate because English is an official language in Israel. People tend to forget it. So, you know, so they came and they do this podcast with us. To us, it was...
You gotta do one about trying to get through Ulpan. That's one. I'll come on for that with a few other friends. Anyway, thanks guys.
Thank you.
Good for you. That's one thing about Israel is you got to be creative of finding your way. So yes.
Just one thing. Meltingpodcast.com is how you get to the podcast.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.